Hello, my name is Wildstag, and thank you for tuning in to another used book review. Today I'm going to be covering this book, The Left Stuff. The subtitle, How the Left Have Survived and Thrived in a Right-Handed World. The author is Melissa Roth. The back matter says that she is a left-handed, right-footed journalist who has written for publications including The New York Times, Rolling Stone, and Marie Claire. This book was published in 2005, but more to the point, I know this copy is from 2005 because the inside cover reads in the top right corner, December 25th, 05. And then in cursive, to my favorite Southpaw, you have conquered many things with intelligence and perseverance, least of which is living in a right-handed world. As always, love and pride, Mom. Now I'll take a moment to turn that around so you can see. I don't know where I got this one. I think I got it in Virginia somewhere. There's no indication of a number in the top right corner with a dash next to it indicating price, so I really can't tell where I bought this. But it is a fascinating collection of information, scientific and cultural information about left-handed people. I myself am left-handed, and so that was really what drew me to this book on the shelves. It's always nice trying to find other left-handed people. I know one of my first workplaces was at a community center in Northern Virginia, and when I was there, we found out that of the 10 or 11 people on staff, 6 or 7 of us were left-handed dominant. This book has a lot of interesting sections, chapters. So, for example, in chapter 3, Who Are the Left-Handed, is this section, A Raise of Hands, a count of lefties. Based on studies that combine handedness surveys, approximately 12% of Americans and Western Europeans are left-handed, with breakouts varying depending on sex, age, and cultural background. While these rates are relatively consistent in Western countries, they vary considerably around the world. The more permissive a culture is about individual preferences in general, the more left-handers appear. The scarcest populations of lefties are found in Asian, Muslim, and Latin American countries, so-called formal cultures that stress conformity and fixed sex roles. North American cultures are classified as non-formal. These countries continue to systematically switch young kids to right-handedness, particularly when it comes to writing and eating. Korea, Japan, and Taiwan churn out the lowest levels of lefties, with estimates averaging 2, 3, and 5%, respectively. As an aside, the book just says Korea, but I think reasonably we can assume it means South Korea instead of just a unified Korea. But moving on. In a cross-cultural study of self-perceived handedness, Belgians came in first at 15.7%, while Nigerians were least likely to report left-handedness at only 4.9%. And while most of England counts the left-handed as 11 to 12% of its citizens, lefties are scarcer in the Celtic Isles of Wales and Scotland, representing a mere 8% of their populations. To get a sense of the true proportion of left-handedness in a country, scholars look at activities other than writing. For example, in a 1983 study of Japanese boys, the number who used their left hand to whittle with a penknife was close to 9%. Yet with ongoing pressures to conform, students will increasingly opt for the right hand as they get older, even for activities for which the left hand was preferred initially. And it goes on like that, and it goes on like that for the rest of that chapter. It really wants to put these things in context, but the chapters are Chapter 1, The Left-Handed Renaissance, Chapter 2, The Right-Wing Conspiracy, the Historical Bias Against the Left Hand, and so there we're really getting into the cultural side of things. Chapter 3, Who Are the Left-Handed? Deconstructing Lefty. And this is an attempt to really define what they mean by left-handed, which is why, that one section talked about whittling with a knife. Chapter 4 is Lefty on the Inside, Handedness and the Brain. 5, Nature or Nurture, What Makes a Lefty. 6, The Tipping Point, Evolution and Handedness. And 7, The Triumph of the Lefties, How Southpaws Survived and Thrived. They do discuss in the Nature versus Nurture the Scottish Kerr clan, Kerr. This section goes into a bit of history about the Kerr clan. According to Scottish lore, the castle was built by a left-hander, Andrew Kerr, forefather of the clan. Legendary for their left-handed sword fighting, the Kerrs were so deadly with their foils that no one could fight against them, according to the poem The Raid of the Kerrs, by an Englishman named Ettrick Shepherd from that time. But the Kerrs were aye the deadliest foes that e'er to English men were known, for they were all bred left-handed men, and fence against them there was none. It goes on, really, it discusses in the Nature or Nurture section a bit of warfare history as well, why left-handed people, if they were at such a disadvantage because they held their spear and shield with the wrong hand, why would they continue to live to adulthood? How could they continue to have children if they were at such a disadvantage? But left-handed people, warriors especially, were often raised to almost a legendary status. They give the examples of the Kerr family, or in the Bible, the book of Judges, Israel was freed from the tyrannical domination of King Egon of Moab by a left-handed swordsman named Ehud. Commodus, the emperor of Rome during the gladiator era, was said to be left-handed, as were Julius Caesar, Charlemagne, and Alexander the Great. It does emphasize, you can train someone to be a right-handed person with enough effort, and a lot of cultures still do that. So on one hand, it's nurture, but on the other hand, handedness does seem to be innate, genetic to some degree. So is it nature? It's hard to really know, especially 2005, that's 17 years ago. And when this book was being written, perhaps 18, 19 years ago. It also includes at the back matter the handedness surveys, the Edinburgh Handedness Survey, and the Annette Hand Preference Questionnaire. Of these, I can find one online that has the scoring system for it. The tasks it lists are writing, drawing, throwing, cutting with scissors, cutting with a knife without a fork, spooning something out, toothbrushing, sweeping, upper hand on the broom, striking a match, and opening a box lid. This book also provides 2 questions at the end of it. Which eye do you use to look through a camera lens? And which foot do you use to kick a ball? So for writing, I strongly prefer left-handedness. My right hand is chicken scratch. So for that one, left hand strongly preferred is 2. If I were to put right hand strongly preferred, that would be right. 2 points for right. So for this survey, the following tasks, these are my responses. Writing, I strongly prefer left-handed writing, and drawing. I prefer using the right hand for throwing, using scissors, and brushing my teeth. With using a knife without a fork, using a spoon, and using a broom with the upper hand on the broom, all 3 of those I strongly prefer left-handedness. For striking a match, I tend to strike with my right hand, and with opening a jar or a box lid, I strongly prefer left hand. Just automatically, without thinking about it, I reach for the object with my right hand and open it with my left hand. So the total score in this case was 12 left and 4 right. And it comes out to, after that calculation, a -50, which is to say that I am a mixed left-hander. according to this grading system. With these left-handedness and right-handedness surveys, what I gather is that there's degrees of left-handed and right-handedness that they measure. And in this case, I am dominant left hand, but I use my right hand for a lot of things. And I think that's what you find with a large majority of left-handers. My dad, also left-handed, but he will brush his teeth, he will use scissors, he will use everything with his left hand if he can help it. The only thing he doesn't really do with his left hand that I know of is using a computer mouse. There are degrees of left-handedness, but some people, like my dad, are very strongly left-handed, and some people, like myself, are kind of mixed in that regard. But the book really gets into depth about the nature of left-handedness, the history, the cultural aspects of it, primarily on the Western cultural aspects of being left-handed. There is some level of global research in this, but I like this book. I don't read it often. In fact, I've only read it once or twice, and then I skimmed it while looking for material for this video. I have a favorable impression of it. It was a fun read, and it's always interesting to learn more about myself and my place in the world. If you think you want to learn more about left-handedness, I'd suggest picking this book up. It's a really fun and engaging book. Kind of dry at times when it's a bit more scientific, though. My name is Wildstag, and thank you for tuning in to another used book review.